very much. With that, I will transition to Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Terry. You've been introduced before, sir, so it's on the record. Welcome on board, and the floor is yours. After you speak, then we will take questions from our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to all the distinguished panel members that have been assembled today. It's an honor and a privilege to speak in front of all of you today. My topic is dealing with police reform in general, not just only in the United States, but also abroad. How does police reform reflect in what we see in everyday life? First, let's start with what I feel one of the most important aspects of it is, what is the government's view on police reform? The government depends a lot on what and how are they constructed. Are we looking at a government that is in a democracy, or are we looking at a dictatorship? In those aspects, the democracy or dictatorship actually forms the police reform or no reform. It dictates how all are treated. It also either elicits or does not take into account anyone's personal view of how a person is to be treated in their everyday life. Given this fact, most people talk about police reform and look at a generalized statement. I look at it and break it down into two contents. In most democracies, a person has a choice whether or not to be in law enforcement. In most dictatorships, the person does not have a choice, especially when we look at young people. Here in the United States, we have age limits, or age guidelines when you're dealing with law enforcement. You have to be of a certain age. In a lot of dictatorships, we're looking at children. We're looking at children being put in law enforcement positions that they have neither the choice nor the option to get out of. What does that impact? That impacts a young person mentally for the rest of their lives. They're forced into situations where, first of all, they have no training. They have no sense of why they're even there. And in certain countries, that will impact that country's growth for the next generation. Because now you have brought up a group of young people who know not which they come from as far as a standpoint of law and order, but all of chaos. Here in the United States, I look at, we have a mixture of both. We have a mixture of a democracy that's led, but in certain areas, we have what I call mini dictatorships. And when I look at a dictatorship, I look at it as a person not having a choice of how they're being directed, or the playing field is not on a level field for everybody to play on. Here in the United States, we have one single mission to oppose what we call unjust treatment. And our greatest asset is the right to vote. I've been asked a lot of questions dealing with defunding law enforcement. And I always ask the question, why? Why do you want to defund law enforcement, and what is the impact? Before you ask to do something, you need to know what the impact is on what you're asking for. I look at and take the analogy of a doctor. If you had one doctor who was not of a standard, who was committing atrocities, who was liable for not providing adequate health care to their patients, would you defund the whole medical system? Or would you try to now go after that one element, that one bad doctor, and have them removed? I pose that question to those who asked about defunding the police. It's not about taking money from a resource to justify one person's misdeed. It's about attacking the issue. And how do you go about attacking the issue? Reallocation of funds, in my opinion, is the better of those avenues. And with the right to vote, and I'll just use the United States in that vernacular, you can change the allocation of those funds by using your vote, by putting those people in office that can make the changes that you deem necessary to put everybody on an even playing field. We all want the same thing. At least I hope we all want the same thing, and that's justice for all. When I took an oath as a law enforcement officer, it didn't say serve today, serve 1 hour, serve 1 minute. It was serve everyone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I had no choice once I took that oath. I didn't care if you were white, black, Hispanic, whatever orientation you were. That oath bound me to help you at any time, in any place. Law enforcement needs to keep that credo close and dear to their heart. So in my opinion, when we do go and reallocate these funds, we have to have the training necessary to make sure that the people we want responsible to safeguard our livelihood each and every day actually respect and understand the communities that they serve and protect. See, it's hard for a person if they don't have, a stake in the matter. You know, if you're not from Washington, D.C. in a vernacular, why would you have a stake in Washington, D.C.? If I wasn't from Michigan, why would I have a stake in Michigan if I live in Florida? See, it's very easy to look the other way when you don't have a stake in something. That's why it's very important to make sure that those we have in those positions of service have a stake in the community, have a stake in what they do when they serve and protect. That is the utmost when we talk about law enforcement. That is the utmost when we look at those we want to make sure that we're safe and secure. Right now, in the United States, we're going through an election process. And I say this is the time. If you're in a country that allows you to vote, that allows you to have a right to have a say, this is your opportunity to make that change. Over the course of history, and I'll use the United States again, we have gone through so much as a people of color, to earn the right to vote. So many have died, so many have sacrificed to allow us to come to this junction of life. We should not take that for granted. That is a right that has been given to us by our forefathers to correct injustice and to level the playing field, to bring those into power that would allow this. If we forsake that right, we have nobody to blame but ourselves. We must each and every day help one another. The United States, along with other countries, must band together and help one another further the cause of righteousness, of fair play, of treating one another with respect. There are a lot of ways of going about it, but the one sure way is come together as one. Individually, we can do a lot for selfish reasons, but when we're talking about serving and being my brother's keeper, we have to look at a global aspect, and we have to come together globally to explore all avenues of how to help one another come out of a lot of the turmoils that they're going through. Only in this, law enforcement as a whole will be in a partnership and be able to serve not only their local community, but world community as we stand today. And I thank you for my time and blessings to all.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. That was a very